Our video today is on percentage-based scoring for the silver bullet hold with the Captains of Crush grippers or any grippers that you have that you want to use for your own arm lifting meet. For the sake of this example, we're going to use all of the Iron Mine grippers that they have in their catalog here. From number 4 down to the guide, we're taking the poundage to close these grippers as per to the website and catalog and putting these in here. If you have some grippers that are calibrated, you can also put those in here, and our formulas will kind of adjust to whatever we're doing here. So before you explode and say, it doesn't take this much weight to close a number 4, I have one that's rated at 200 pounds. That's great. Congratulations. I have grippers also, and they're rated at different numbers, but for the sake of the example, we're going to put these here. So the first thing we want to do is find out what our gripper is compared to the hardest one we have in our catalog today. So I have gripper, our first gripper here, divided by the heaviest one that we have today, which is 365. I'm going to drag this down. And now you can see how hard the number 3.5 is compared to this. It's 0.88 or 88.35% as hard as our number 4. Our number 3 at 280 pounds is about 76.71% as hard as our number 4. Our number 1 is about 38% as hard as our number 4. And what we're going to do now is create what's called a lower boundary, or in other words, the minimum amount of points that you're going to be able to receive by using a particular gripper. And so in this case, we need to find first an average between these two grippers. We're going to do an average of this. How do you find that average? You add two things together, divide it by 2, and to make it a whole number, we're going to multiply it by 100. We have a lower boundary of 94. What that means again is that if you use the number 4 in a contest for a silver bullet, the lowest amount of points you're going to get for the event is 94. If you use a number 3.5, the lowest number you're going to get is 83. So this chart is already kind of set up to show you what each of these points might get you. If you use a 3.5, these are the points that you're eligible for. If you use a 2, these are the points you're eligible for in this event for our percentage-based scoring. And of course, since our number 4 is the strongest gripper, we're going to go with 100 points here. Again, you can change this to a Beef Builder Grand Elite, and it's 320 pounds of pressure to close. All of our formulas change. You see that? Now this one is actually a little bit heavier. We can move that up if we need to for the sake of continuity and aesthetics of our spreadsheet. Let's change that over. So this is 97.727% as hard as our Grand Elite. We have our boundaries never changing. And then we'll have to, this is kind of just for example, we don't really do much else with this. We're going to take our lower boundaries. Let me change this back to our example. So we have our lower boundaries. Let's make sure that we copy these and bring these over to our other spreadsheet here. Our lower boundaries are already put into the spreadsheet that shows all these division errors. Oh my God, so many errors. This is our spreadsheet from California's Strongest Hands that we hosted in February 2018. Lindsay Hall, who is a very well-respected and well-renowned strongwoman competitor, helped us out with this spreadsheet and put up all these pivot tables and things. And so after messing it up 1,000 times and having her help me fix it, I have a pretty good understanding of this. I won't get into how we got all these people separated and all these categories and things, but it is important to know that each of these categories are going to be scored individually. So what that means is all the women 80 kilo plus are going to get scored amongst all the women 80 kilo plus and amongst all the women in general. So we have our first category here that refers to the weight class they're in. The overall category, 1 for women, 2 for men down here. And then all of our weight categories, and they're each given separate category numbers here. That refers to another table here. We're not going to worry about that so much. The important part is we want to get the scoring proper on the grippers. So you can set this up to where everyone's getting scored in a kind of an absolute way like they do at the APO Worlds in Russia. What that means is that it's all weight classes. So all men compete together, whether you're 60 kilos or 260 kilos, and all women compete together in the same weight class as well. For the sake of our example, and without screwing this up any further, I'm just going to put in our figures as if we are still using this separate weight division scoring. So let's say Milena uses the number 1.5. She does it for 11.5 seconds, 11.4 seconds. Adriana uses the trainer. She gets it for 32.2 seconds. Joanne uses the number 2 because she is a monster for some reason in a 70 kilo class, and she does it for 4.2 seconds as well. As we tab over, you start to see these things get filled out a little bit. The best performance by gripper refers to, out of each of these grippers, let's actually change that. Let's make this the trainer so we can have a better example. Out of all the trainers, what was the best performance? Well, that was 32.2 by Adriana. We put that in here as well automatically. Adriana receives the maximum amount of points for the trainer because she scores the highest with the trainer out of everyone else who used the trainer. Joanne gets the highest points for using the number 2 because she has the highest performance out of anyone else using the number 2 in this division. Confused yet? Here we go. Our scaled score refers to the lower boundary, upper boundary thing we had earlier here. So our scaled score is 58 for Joe. She used the number 2 here. The most she can get is 58, and she gets 58 points. The other figures are filled out to 58 as well because we want to be able to compare Milena and Adriana's performance on the trainers to Joe's performance on the number 2. So we're going to weigh their effort against Joe's effort, and we're going to get a final score here. So in this example, Milena did 45.55% as good as Joanne with her effort on the number 2. Adriana's score is 29 based on Joe's 58, so about 50% is good. And as we go over to these other best performance by gripper, these aren't going to really come into play until we get the rest of the ladies filled out here. So let's do that here. Let's go to a trainer. She held it for 12.2 seconds. Kat used the number 3 because she is a monster, but only held it for 2.1 seconds. I'll kind of fill these out here. Tina with a guide. She decided to go big or go home on this and hold it for 61.1 seconds. Just kind of making up figures here. So as you can see that we put these scores into our score sheet, all of our categories here for each of the weight classes start to take shape, and you get to see how each of the athletes compare to each other. Once we get these last 2 athletes filled out here, we're going to be able to see, look at that, I messed it up already, be able to see the overall. So we're going to be able to compare not just each athlete's effort within their weight class, their category. We're going to be able to see their effort among all the women competing that day. So Marianne does the sport for 14.7 seconds. Betsy does the sport for 15.7 seconds. And with one tab, now we get to see how these women compare to each other in the overall. We have our max scaled score of 82 points. That matches our number 3 that Kat Gerard used. Kat was the strongest athlete on the gripper that day, using a number 3 for 2.1 seconds. She received 100% of the points in her weight class. She received 100% of the points in the overall. And everybody else in this overall column is judged against her. So we have our category among the weight classes, our overall category amongst all the women. And so our score that we're looking for in our weight class is this final score here. The score we're looking for in our overall, if we're trying to find the best lifter of the day, is going to be in this column here. So a little bit confusing, but the important things to remember are that we have our upper boundary, which is set permanently here. Our lower boundary can get changed if we need it to. We can put whatever grippers we want to here, but these formulas do all the magic for us, and they show us the percentage-based scoring for each gripper. Let's say I want to change Milena. She did a number 1, Ashley. And then that shakes things up quite a bit. It changes her ranking in the final score here, and it gives her a few more points in the overall as well. maybe she actually used the number 3. You're going to see her. Well, that's a guide, not a 3 clay. There we go. So that's going to change her to get 100% of the points in her weight class and 100% of the points in the overall. It's going to bump Kat, even though she used the number 3, down to 89 points in her weight class. So a little confusing, but if you're doing scoring by the division, you're going to want this one. If you're doing scoring by the overall, you're going to want this one. Don't screw with these formulas, because then you'll be hitting me up for advice, and I'll say, I don't know, reinstall the spreadsheet again. Just make sure that your scores are properly entered here, and you'll be able to do a rundown of who is the best on the silver bullet hold at each of your competitions. Hope that helps. Hope you're not confused further. If you are, you can put comments in the video below or send me an email to clay@swolebiz.com. Thanks.